Okay, so let's call the meeting to order. I'm very sorry. I was, for some reason, I had 6:30 in my head, which is good because Chad didn't have the right link. So, first thing is call the meeting to order. We did executive session for personnel. Can I get a motion to move into executive session for personnel, please?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Seconds.
Okay, I think I heard Mark second it. All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
Okay, it sounds like it's unanimous. Tammy, will you stay with us, please? Okay, Matt. Okay, so by unanimous consent, we came out of executive session at whatever time it says on the clock. What time we got?
6:28.
6:28. And the administration gave us a heads up on a personnel issue, but that it seems to have resolved and that we shouldn't have to worry about it anymore. So the next thing is addition or deletions to the agenda. And there's no additions or deletions. Then I'm going to just ask that we move the first draft of the budget up to right after members of the right after correspondence, so that we can let Lori and Greg leave us, unless they really are very bored and want to hang out and watch us meet for a bunch of time. If nobody has any objections, then we'll do that. Okay, I got members of the public. Do I see any members of the public?
We do have a couple.
I don't see any members. Oh, Randy Capitani, I think I know why you're here. Randy, you have something you want to bring up, or Chad is back? No, he's here twice.
There's Randy.
Yeah. Hi, Rich. I just wanted to talk about the agenda item about the board apportionment. Do you want to do it now, or you guys are going to talk about it later?
Yeah, can you hang out?
Back in when you're going to do it.
Yeah, if you don't mind, why don't we do it then?
7:45.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, so we'll probably be probably about an hour and 15 or so.
Yeah, I saw it was on your agenda for 7:45, so I
Okay,
will check back in. I might monitor you guys.
we need monitoring, so thank you, Randy.
All right, thanks. I'll cut out.
Amelia, did you have anything as public, or are you just here to see what's going on?
I'm just here to see what's going on. Thank you, though.
Okay, thank you. So we have the minutes of November 15, 2021 as presented. I have no correspondence. So if there's no objections, we'll just accept the minutes of the November 15, 2021 meeting.
So moved.
No, we don't
No,
have
we're
to
not
move it.
moving?
If there's no objections, it's a consent agenda, so. Okay, we'll accept the minutes of the November 15th meeting. No, I'm sorry, members of the staff. I see we have staff here. Does anybody from the staff have anything, or? Go ahead, Tracy.
I just wanted to thank the school directors and administration for the mental health day on the 22nd. It was much appreciated.
Did you get mental health that day?
I did a whole lot of nothing.
Good, congratulations, thank you. We appreciate that too, Tracy, we really do. Samantha, you're unmuted, did you want to?
Yeah, I also wanted to give a big thanks. I think the staff really appreciated it, and it was very, very welcome to have that Wellness Day. We all really needed it. So thank you to everybody.
Well, thank you. It was, like I said, it was so well taken last year by, when we presented it at the retreat, you know, all the other schools got it too, and you guys used to be really special. Now it's not as special, but thank you. Anybody else on the staff? Okay, I see that Vicky Capitani join us. Vicky, did you have anything as public or?
No, I was just interested.
Okay, thank you. Then I'm going to move on to the first draft of the budget, which, Lori, I'm going to turn it over to you. And I think it was sent out to everybody Thursday, and everybody should have gotten it, and hopefully that we've got some copies here. Lori, why don't you, do you have a question first?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
So I have some questions and notes. Do you want to go through the whole thing and then go back, Lori? Or do you want us to ask questions as you're going along? Or Rich, sorry.
Definitely as you were going along,
Okay.
and I think it makes more sense to kind of chunk it up like that.
Okay.
So let's, Lori, to make life easy, let's break it up into like the operational first, and then the capitals.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, okay. So why don't we do the operational budget? Are we gonna share screen, or can we just review it?
We were planning on sharing it.
Okay.
So that do you?
What's your
choose?
pleasure?
We
Yeah,
should share
whatever you want to do.
Yeah, it's so difficult to run a meeting when you can't see if people have a question or.
It'd just be important for them to raise their hands and review.
Okay, so folks, I guess we're gonna share the screen, so we can only see a couple people. So if you have now we can't see anybody.
Yes,
You
we
can
see
see their
them all on the
names.
right.
We want
See
their,
them all on the right.
we want their hand.
Okay, I guess you have to raise your hand, I'm sorry, it's more like school.
Digital hand.
Digital hand, not your physical hand.
Yeah, that first draft, there we go. Right. Okay, do you fellows mind if I take off my mask?
I don't mind.
No,
Not at
please
all.
do.
Fully vaccinated and
Okay.
boosted.
I think it's, people can hear me better if I don't have my mask on.
Oh, we're still there.
All right. So, as you can tell, I sent you a lot of documents to review. And the first draft of the budget is what we're going to talk about first. This is, just a working draft. We are still awaiting some different numbers that are trickling in as we're going along. So this will change a little bit, but for the most part, it includes all of the I think no, we need to go back a page. There we go. It includes all of the main items that both Matt and Tammy and myself, we met and came up with to create an equitable budget. So I did put notes on the side. So I don't think it's really important to go through every single line item, but I think we should go through the different departments. So this budget is broken up by function and then by level, right? So the function is the department. You have your direct instruction first, and then by level, the pre-K program, the elementary program, and then the secondary program. So this is your direct instruction to students section of the budget. Does anybody have any questions on this? And I put the line items in there so that we could refer to things. And if I don't, I'm writing down questions and that type of thing, so.
There's a hand, you see there.
So, Mark, go ahead. And then Laura after Mark.
So, line, Jesus, I think it's 18, 5562.
Yes.
It says it increased based on students. Are we losing students to other pre-K programs, or is this, what is that?
Sure, yeah, no, this is the increase of pre-K students that attend other programs, and which, Wardsboro and in Dover both pay out that 10 hours a week to other programs. So it's just capturing an increase in students overall. So there's, the Mount Snow, that's a pre-K program. Timpson Hill is a pre-K program, so they still pay that out to other pre-K programs, the 10 hours a week.
So are more students opting for those programs over the RVUSD program?
I'm not sure that that is what you're seeing here. It could just be that there's an increase of students and we just know that they're going to go to an outside program based on what we know at the time. You know, maybe their sibling went to an outside program or something like that. We do count, we do get to count the ADM. It counts for 0.46, but we do count those, even though they're not attending a Wardsboro or Dover program.
In Mark, if you look to, in FY '21, we spent a little bit more than that actually. We spent almost $30,000 actually. So again, it's a best case scenario, you know, or best case guess. We don't know until it's actually all over. Till the kind of like the fat lady sings. You all set, Mark? No, I saw that. Lori's next. Are you good, Mark?
Yeah, I've got another question under the next section, but I can wait.
No, go ahead. Why don't you get your questions out?
All right, line 43, 5611. I'm unfamiliar with the Bridges pilot program. Can you give us a quick understanding of what that is?
I think Matt would be the best person to answer that.
Sure, gladly, Mark. Can you hear me okay?
I can, thank you.
Great. So Bridges is a math program that we are piloting at the Dover School this year in grades 1, 2, and 3. And so those expenses are related to that particular program.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Are you good, Mark?
Yeah, I think so.
And again, we can go back and also, if there's something you missed after you have a chance to do a deeper look at this, then we can, you know, we'll definitely have another shot at it. Chad, Laura was next, and then I'll get to you, okay, sir? Make sure you speak loud.
Okay, so back up, Lori, 5211 health insurance. In the pre-K program, do we have the same number of staff, just a change in policies, or did we add staff there?
Same number of staff.
Okay.
It's just a different staff person.
Okay, and then, in the secondary,
Yes.
so I've read that generally that our numbers are going down combined.
Correct.
Okay, that's it. That's all for me.
Hey, Mark, could you lower your hand, please? And then Chad, go ahead, you're next, sir.
Thank you, Rich, I appreciate that. So Mark's question leads to another question for me with the increase. And I understand, you know, with school choice, if we do not have a grade level to offer, then we're giving our community the choice to pick where their students will go. Since we do offer pre-K 3, 4, and full kindergarten, why is it that we're offering choice of paying, you know, for private tuition elsewhere? Can you comment on that?
Yeah, that's a state law. That was not included, and that's been almost from day one. Even if you offer a program and somebody wants to go to a different program, that's it's universal pre-K.
It's Act 166.
Well, make me look bad.
No, I'm just, in case Chad wanted to look it up.
Yeah, no, and Chad, it's been a thorn in our side for a while because it's tough because, you know, we spend a lot of money for that and then have to pay tuition. But, you know, the other thing is it's tough because it's not a full-time program and we can't do transportation. So there's a parent that may live in Wardsboro, nowhere near the school, that drives to works at Grace Cottage and they want to have their child go to the Townsend school because then they can pick them up at lunchtime. You know, so it is, I believe it's a really good thing. So
Can I just- And Chad, just so you also understand that you're not seeing the revenue side right now, we'll get to revenues later. There are students that come from, we'll say Stratton to the Dover program and pay for those Stratton students to come. So that's revenue to River
Right.
Valleys.
Excellent. No, thank you for the clarification.
Thanks, Chad. I'm going to go to Kate, and then we'll go back to Mark. Well, actually, Mark.
Lori might have just,
Oh, go ahead, Kate, I'm sorry.
oh, okay. So Lori just mentioned the revenue side, but I was wondering if there were any grants that are available in pre-K, kindergarten, arena these days, like that you knew.
Did somebody get that?
Grants available, is that what you said, Kate?
Yeah, like, do we get grants for the pre-K program? And are we maximizing all of the grants that are available and all the different funds that are available for that program?
Well, we get reimbursement.
Grants, the only grant that really supports pre-K that I know, I believe both Dover and Wardsboro have received are the STARS program, right? So that is a little bit of revenue. It's very, very little though. But so other than that, no, I would say the pre-K program is a tax-funded program.
But we do get tuition, as part of the block grant. We get money for those students for the part of the time that they're there. So it's not totally fun. It's part of our amount of money that we get at the end of the year, get during the year.
I may have that, so you can all hear me, but yes, there are the grants, and Lori did look into some of that. Kate, I think these might be the ones you're thinking of, and she had found out that we can't actually use those funds because of planting the teachers that we already have in place there. Is that correct, Lori?
It is, yes. Yeah, this is money that is COVID related or CARES Act related. And I did look into it, but really you would be supplanting, and this particular grant does not allow for supplanting.
Okay, cool. Thank you for looking into those too. I appreciate that extra work.
Oh, no problem. Tammy brought it to our attention and we were all excited, but ended up we couldn't follow through on it.
Thank you. Hey, Mark, before I go back to you, Joy, do you have any questions or comments? Okay, if you're shaking your head no. Mark, go ahead. You get first time around for the second questions.
Thank you for the second time, I think. Back to secondary, where our numbers are generally going down, but we're anticipating an increase in tuition to private schools. Do we have any idea why?
Really, Mark, at this point, they're really guesstimates of where the students are going to go. So it could be that we're budgeting for a private tuition and they might end up going to a public school. So at this point, no, we don't really have an idea of why. It could be sibling related, that, their siblings had gone there, that type of thing, but I guess not really is the answer at this point for that.
Mark, one of the other things that goes along with the secondary tuition, this is one of the reasons why I've always suggested we have the meeting later rather than earlier. We don't even know rates now. And so, what we've always asked the staff to do, or the administration to do, is to look at where students are going. And so if there's a person that's in 6th grade this year and they have 3 siblings in Brattleboro, let's assume that the 4th one will go to Brattleboro. And if, they haven't, if there's no other siblings, where do they think they may go? So it's just a best guess scenario right now, but as we move along a little further, we can firm up those numbers, because there's no tuition published yet either. I don't think tuition has to be out till like the middle of January, Lori.
That's correct. I did increase tuition just as a, 3% marker kind of thing, but we don't know where it'll all land.
We used to, before we were River Valleys, we would go to town meeting every year in March and have the most updated numbers, and the most updated student count, and we would always play with the numbers and come to town meeting and ask for the voters to make a friendly amendment from the floor to account for some changes that we were able to find. Because a lot of times, if we budget low, we're really in trouble. So we try, but if we budget too high, it costs more and we may not spend it. So it's always been kind of a guessing game. That's been one of the hardest parts of being a tuitioning school.
And Rich, if I could just follow up to, the drop in students is actually happening this year, right? So we'll talk about that as we, move through this first draft, that there'll be some surplus based on the drop in students this year.
So you're talking about fiscal year 22 is the drop. You're not anticipating a further drop though in fiscal year 23?
A little bit of it. Mm-hmm.
Okay, all right, thank you.
And again, just because we do have some new board members, one of the other things is that what makes our life really difficult is not having a whole bunch of numbers that we can even put in now, because they haven't decided the insurance rate yet, which is.
No, that is.
Oh, is that?
Yes.
That's a firm number now?
That's a firm number, and that is in here. It only went up, overall, different plans went up different rates, but say 6%, which is the lowest I've ever seen it. So, and that's reflected in this budget.
So again, and then we don't ever do the income side until we get further down the road, another month or so, too, and then that will also make a difference. And then we'll ask Lori to give us a projected surplus. And then we can also, if there is marked less tuition students this year, it may not be as bad as we think with an increase in secondary rates, because there'll be some surplus that we can ask the voters to move forward. So Matt or Tammy, I mean, there's been a lot of questions from the board. Is there anything that, Lori got to speak, is there anything in the operational budget that you guys want to point out to us, or anything that, and you don't have to have anything, I'm just asking.
I don't have anything specific. Tammy, do you have anything specific?
No, I didn't know if maybe Lori or Bill wanted to speak to the laughter increase.
Yeah, I definitely want to talk about that, because that really needs to be a board decision when we get there, yeah. And we can just kind of move through the other departments, and just stop me if I'll just say, art. Does anybody have any questions on art?
Well, how about, can I do this, Lori?
Yeah.
Did everybody get a chance to review the entire budget, to look at it, not just the first section?
Yeah.
Because if everybody's looked through the entire budget, we'll just have Lori highlight what she felt was important, if that's okay with the board.
Yeah, do you want questions for the entire budget at this point, or just that first page?
Well, no, because we've covered we've covered secondary tuition, private school tuition. So, if you have questions on anything in the budget, Lori, let's just do the.
Okay, open it up for questions.
So let me have Lori just give us an overview of anything she thinks is important for us to know, and/or the administration, and then we'll move on to questions on the entire budget. Just the operational budget from the board.
Right.
Okay.
Okay, so overview, there was an addition to the nursing position, which is happening this year as well, but it is put into the fiscal year 23 budget as a full-time position. That was one item. Under school focus, you will see that the art/STEAM position was increased. However,
Lori, can you just give us a section?
Sure, it's
153,
153, thank you.
page 3, 153.
So as you will see from this, the art STEAM position was increased slightly to cover the coordination of STEAM, and then we were able to do a little bit of decrease here. So this budget overall is decreased, but Tammy, and Tammy, please jump in here, felt that this was the best use of the position and the best way to move STEAM forward. Is that right?
Yeah, I just feel like it's a better model.
That's what word I was
As you remember, last year we had 2 teachers that were being paid stipends. So that's what we had budgeted for FY22. However, the current art teacher is also taking on the STEAM role for one of the afternoons. So she'll teach art in the morning, and then she coordinates the teachers for STEAM in the afternoon. So we're proposing that the stipend be, that was budgeted for this year, be reallocated, is that how I would say it, Lori?
Yes.
To that position. So we're able to decrease a little bit, but increase her time, correct?
Yes, that's exactly it. But we wanted to point it out because we don't want to say that the program is being reduced, because that's not the case at all. It's just a reallocation of the personnel. Okay? And then as Tammy, let me see if I can find it now. It is in co-curricular. I'm working for it, looking for it. Co-curricular. Okay, so it's going to be in line 126. And this is what Tammy was referring to. So 21C, the program, the grant, is being reapplied for fiscal year 23. And Wardsboro, based on their free and reduced numbers, will no longer be eligible for this grant. So this is a fairly large increase to support their after-school program. So it's basically what happened a few years back in Dover, when Dover decided not to become part of or to pull out of the 21st Century Grant and do the program on their own. So the $19,000 that's budgeted is basically the local share that Wardsboro was, or River Valleys was already paying on behalf of Wardsboro, and also what they would have gotten out of that 21st Century Grant. So, and they were able to run their program on that amount of money. So this is, it's really for discussion as far as whether the board wants to continue to offer a after-school program and pay for it locally.
And I would just add that basically it's mimicking what is occurring in the Dover building. It's locally run, so there are both challenges and opportunities. Challenges are you have to be responsible for finding the people to staff it. The opportunities are you are not under a federal grant, so your flexibility is tremendous. So there will be some transition, but we do have a model that has been working in the Dover building for about 9 years. So I think we have a good model of which to support that transition if the board supports this investment in after-school programming.
Yeah, I believe that we've supported the after-school program in both buildings, and I think right now, folks, this is just let's run through and see where we're at. I don't know if this is a time to make a decision on a specific program, because if it's in the budget, to me, the administration wants it, and if they didn't think it was important, it wouldn't be in there. But that's, I didn't want to get into specific programs, but I think it's just good to note that there'll be less income coming in. And that should have been up high anyways, because, we never had the responsibility for it. That's why, because it was somewhere else.
It was in Wyndham
It
Central?
was in Wyndham Central's budget.
Right,
Okay.
yeah. So there will be some revenue to offset that.
Go ahead, Mark.
Can we stop the screen sharing, since we're not looking at the document? And then as far as after-school programs go, I think that it's pretty important that we have one at both buildings. My question is, Laura, you mentioned that it's because the FRL numbers are down, I'm assuming. Is that, are fewer families responding since meals are included now because of COVID? Could that be part of the reason?
Well, I think, Tammy, you could probably answer the question about participation in filling out the forms and that type of thing. But this does even go back a couple of years, I think, as well. So the number has been, the free and reduced number has been reducing, and it has to be 40% or higher to qualify for the grant. But they were covered under the grant for through fiscal year 22. So they wouldn't take it away, even though their numbers may have dropped in previous years. Tammy, what do you feel the applications are coming in okay?
I think so, and I think, Jen's really great about getting the paperwork out, at the beginning of the year and making sure that parents fill that out regardless of whether or not they think that they will qualify. So I do feel like we've done our due diligence as far as that goes.
Hey, thank you very much.
Tammy, or Lori, anything else?
Matt, did you have anything else? I think that those were the nurse and the couple of other things. Otherwise, it's, the increases and decreases throughout the whole budget are basically come down to, $104,000 over last year. You will also, what's that?
Total?
Yeah. I mean, a lot of it, remember, is in your secondary ed, right? Your decrease of students in secondary ed, which means that your equalized pupils will be down as well.
So income will be down.
So yes, the revenues will be down. We won't have equalized pupils until at least December 15th. So it'll be January's meetings before we can really start to look at that. So even though your budget is down, or not up significantly, then your revenues are going to be down as well. So we'll just have to wait and see where that shakes out at the end.
So Laura's got a question for you, Lori. Maybe.
Can I zip all the way up to, 5623? I'm looking at energy costs.
Can you, do you have the line number?
Over here, can you see it?
250? 251.
251.
Electricity?
So electricity, bottled gas, and oil. So I have 3 questions there. So you're projecting an increase on electricity and no increase on bottled gas and oil.
Right. I was really looking at the actuals to increase that. And it hasn't been increased really too much, a little bit in fiscal year 21 probably. But yeah, I was readjusting the budget based on actual. And no, I didn't, those actuals are looking pretty good. Oil is, actually under budget this year.
Okay.
Or for 21. For this year, it's, let's see, 22 actual year to date, still a little bit under budget.
Okay.
We pre-buy too, don't we? So
Yes.
So we're okay.
we should be good.
It's all pre-bought, yeah.
Okay. Thank you. That was it for questions for me.
Okay, so if we're good with the operational, again, remember, we're not approving it tonight, we're not voting on it tonight, we'll get to that at another point. Mark, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry, I've got a few more questions. Lines 105, 110, the MTSS. My question basically is, even though we have socialized those expenses throughout the SU, do we track what our specific expenses are?
No.
Okay, that was an easy answer. Line 150. Can you just tell me what that is?
Oh, yes. So this is administrative directed professional development. And I have a note there that we're going to update it to 5,000. I just didn't get it into this draft before I needed to send it out on Thursday. And this is what Matt and Tammy, either together or separately, provide trainings for their staff. This is the money to do that. So there's
Thank you. That clarifies it. I wasn't sure what it was. And then just a comment. I think it's line 244. I appreciate you including funding in the budget for the new signs. That's it. Thank you.
Yes, that was, Matt said, let's get that in there this year. We need new signs, so we have that on the docket.
Okay, so if everybody's good, we're gonna move over to operational budget. I'm sorry, to capital budget, sorry.
Would you mind if, so I did provide the personnel salaries and that type of thing. So part of it's negotiated, so that's.
Yeah, so that'll be, negotiations will be.
Right, but there's some that are not negotiated, right? So it's really kind of a board decision.
Well, and
You want to talk about that
the
next?
administration needs to make a presentation to us and what their recommendations are.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can I ask one quick question on that?
Sure. Go ahead.
In the column primary flag, can you just tell me what P&S stand for?
Sure, primary and secondary position.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, so what happens is some stuff is negotiated, so we don't have a say in that. And then it's usually the non-union positions need to be presented to us with what they're recommending for an increase. And, you know, as you see, you've got your principals are in there, so that has to be a recommendation from the superintendent. And then there's other positions that aren't covered under a union negotiated contract. And then some of them we already voted on.
Yes, the ones that there were a couple increases that you had already voted on.
That we voted, I think, last meeting, so. Yeah, so Lori, or Matt, and I guess Bill, it's more you guys, you need to get on that for us so that Lori can have the numbers so she can put them in.
Okay.
Okay? Okay, so then moving right along, I was going through this, so building capital. Lori, you want us to look at this one, right?
Yes, so there's the operational, that's in the operational budget, and that's River Valley's operational budget, that's this one. So everything that is here, and I think Greg wants to speak to one of those specifically, or, yeah. And then this is all in the budget that we just looked over. And then the other document is the fiscal year 22 out to fiscal year 32 capital budget. So those are the two items that are for building operations or transportation. So do we want to let Greg talk about one of the items he wants to move around? Yeah, why don't you, is it okay to share this, or would you rather not?
No, share but this is in the operational budget. This is part of your 1.7% increase.
It is, yes.
Okay.
But
Did everybody, so again, you gotta put your honesty caps on. Did everybody look at the operational budget buildings? They're broken down by Wardsboro and Dover.
It's gonna be,
The vertical table is
It looks,
2610.
can you share it, Matt?
Yep, we're
just
getting
trying to
it.
figure that out.
Okay.
Is that it?
You got it.
Yeah, so on this sheet, is there anything that jumps out at people that they want to have more information on?
Oops,
Go ahead, Mark.
where did it go?
Oh, it went away.
Just give me a second to share it, guys.
But everybody
Under-
has this, right?
For both buildings, you have water filter UV and water filter bulbs UV. I'm just wondering how often those are supposed to be replaced. And then under Dover, timber curbing. I'm not familiar with that term, so if you can just tell me what that means, I'd appreciate it.
Mr. Frost?
Hey, yeah, so the timber curbing was from the, was just from the CNA. Dover decided they didn't really need to do it. They've been able to make it work with what they have going on. It was just talking about replacing all the curbing around the play structure, and it's all in pretty good shape. There really was, it was just one of those things the CNA puts in there and says, on this year, you should do this because it's been X number of years, but it's actually holding up quite well. So we didn't do it. The water filtration stuff is, I'm still kind of learning about it. So I believe that we all use UV water systems and we change out the bulbs, I believe, annually. They're supposed to be done, maybe even semi-annually. And so I'm working with the Intra to look at, what really is going to be the best system to put in here and to make sure that what we're putting in is cost effective and it's going to give us a really good lifespan. And so we are supposed to meet here after the new year at Wardsboro to take a look at their system. He's been in touch with a couple of different people throughout the state on some different systems that have been put in. So I think this was referencing, again, this is something from the CNA. I kind of put all this in there when I first started last year, and or in the spring, I guess. And so the CNA put it in there, and they just projected numbers out, and that's kind of where it came from. It seems like things are working well. I believe I was talking with Tammy and Jen one day, and they bought the bulbs last year for what, I think $800 or $900. So we'll probably do bulbs for this year and kind of keep an eye on the system as a whole and see what we need to do there.
Hey, thank you. Rich, I've got a couple of questions on the horizontal version of the capital budget.
Mark, let's finish up this sheet and then we'll put that one up. So are there any other questions on this sheet from anybody? Go ahead, Lori.
I think, Greg, you wanted to talk about the painting.
Yes, yeah, so I was kind of waiting for that to come up in capital because it was initially was in there as a capital expense. We pulled it out and spanned it over a couple of years to do the exterior painting.
Oh, he froze.
He's in Brattleboro too, isn't he?
He froze.
It's the rain every time.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Hey, Greg, you froze, so start to go over again.
Okay, am I back now?
Yeah, you are.
Okay, sorry. I heard you picking on me, so I'll stop.
Nobody picked on you. We just said you're in Brattleboro. We thought you had better internet.
Me too. So I met with Adam Mattis from Classic Cut Painting in the fall, about midsummer, to look at the painting at Wardsboro to really kind of assess what's going on and what happened. And the way it's peeling, he said it looks like somebody sprayed it and never back brushed it. And so what's happening is it absorbed in anywhere where they would have scraped or sanded, so it absorbed still nicely into the wood, but what happened where it went over old paint is it shrunk up and it just pulled it off. And so there's just big chunks in areas coming up. There's some fascia boards that are now probably gonna need to be replaced. So either way, we had initially thought about doing it out over a few years, but then this year, with not having had to spend the money on the emergency lights because we got that done so cheap, and we relit the gymnasium really cheap. And then the fire alarm panel, it turns out Wardsboro has a really great fire alarm panel that just kind of needs to be kept an eye on, and maintained annually. But is known in the industry as one of the best fire alarm panels ever made. And we heard that from both the King's Electric when they came to do the annual inspection, and then John Jennings from Mammoth Fire Alarms. He echoed the same sentiment of like, no, this is a really great panel. As long as it's working, you probably should keep it. So our thought was, we hadn't spent that $23,000. And so what I would like to propose we do is I've written up an RFP to have the whole building painted in one shot. And I think if we do that, we can come in under that under that number of 23.2, and get the whole building painted in the spring. Either over April break or as soon as school ends, get somebody to start right on it. But I would obviously need the board's blessing to move forward with that RFP.
Okay, but that doesn't have to, that's not the budget. That's not budgeting. I mean, that's for something for this year. So that's, I think, needs to be brought up at a separate time because that needs to be warned. It's not for budgeting next year because if we vote to do it, then the voters don't have a say. So we're using the money. So that's something that you guys can, show us when we see the numbers and stuff. And pardon?
I was just talking to myself, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking about spending money from
Yeah.
this year's budget just for a different purpose, which is fine. We don't even, that's something administration can recommend or Lori can recommend and Greg as an administrator can recommend. So on that one, Greg, let's put that wherever Peter is. Peter, can you just note in the minutes that we need at the next meeting to discuss the possibility of painting the Wardsboro building in this fiscal year?
Yes, understood, will do.
Okay. Was that, I'm sorry to cut you off, Greg, but that's...
No, you're fine, I just didn't, I had the RFP ready, I met with Tammy and told her that I was ready to post this thing, and then we're like, wait a minute, we need to get clearance from the school board and make sure that it's okay that we reallocate those funds, so I'm just trying to make sure I do things in the right order here.
I would just, it's not a small amount. I mean, when they move some money around for purchase like toilet paper versus paper towels or something, that's not a big deal. But $23,000 is a bigger chunk of money. So unless the board disagrees with me, which you guys can, I think that we should really warn that as a separate discussion. And then, I don't see a big issue with it, Greg, because it sounds like you did a good job and saving us money on the electrical panels and the lights. It's going to save us overall. So I'd love to bring it up, but I think we have to do it at the next meeting. I don't see anybody upset. I see some head shaking. So okay, then. Oh, go ahead, Dwight. I'm sorry.
Thanks, Rich. Just a quick question. I see there's money budgeted for lighting. I was wondering if that's if you're going to be going to get energy efficient light bulbs or working with Efficiency Vermont, if that includes any kind of rebates that you may be able to get through those guys for efficient lighting.
Yep. So we did Leland and Gray this summer. We did the whole A level of the gymnasium and the library. So if you do a big enough project, they're willing to help you on it. They'll actually even help you on some of the electrical costs. Because I recently went to them about doing the gymnasium in Dover, and when it's something that they considered that small, they weren't willing to help us on the labor at all. They were just said you take your whatever you get from Granite City as the rebate, the point of sale rebates. So that number was just to kind of start doing classrooms, to have some money in there where we would buy some bulbs every year. And when we bring in then bring in the electrician and let him do his thing, and and then having some money with an electrician allows to swap out switches and old broken outlet covers and plugs that happen to be around the building or anything else we need to move really.
All right, thank you.
Okay, if you guys are all set, I think it's time to move on to the capital budget. The other one, Matt.
Okay.
Next one down.
Lori, go. You need one?
Yep.
Okay.
You're gonna have to zoom.
Yeah.
So remember, FY22 is what we're currently in. So we're discussing FY23. FY24 and out is nothing that we're gonna, that's for the future, but this is just to show you, that every year we're gonna spend money. So, it looks like we're looking at 4 projects, possibly exterior paint in 23 in Wardsboro. It looks like we're looking at windows in Wardsboro, and it looks like we're looking at asphalt coating, seal coating, and it looks like we're looking at a new floor in the gym. Holy mackerel. They've been talking about that since I've been on the board. So they're looking at spending a total of $77,300. Any questions on that? Go ahead, Mark.
Yeah, just a few questions. I'll start with the big one. And I realize that it's listed as FY 30 and 32, but the roof at Dover, you guys were going to have somebody take a look at it. Are we really looking at it being good through FY 30?
Is that Greg?
Yeah.
Greg!
Yeah, I'm coming. Sorry, I went to the wrong place. So I don't really stay until they're up there. We had roof at Oak Grove when I left there that was 75. The rubber was still just fine. We had to reseam it at one point. So when we have, Bratt Roofing get up there and go through it, Matt and I talked, when we talked about budgeting, and he said I think the newest was 96, which puts it all right at about 25 years, which is, it's pushing it, it's right on its lifespan. That's what you would expect from a rubber roof. So, the hope is that it's going to be all right. Again, that number I pulled from the CNA that was done in 2017, and that was where they had it, so it was where I stuck it. And I think that when we get something back from Bratt Roofing, that will really drive where we end up having to put that.
All right, thank you. And just two other questions. One, under Dover, in FY 25 and FY 26, you've got two cells that are colored differently. I was wondering if you could tell us what those mean.
Boiler.
Lori forgot to take off the color before she put it out?
Storage.
Probably, I don't know. Greg, how about you?
Yeah, I'm thinking we just forgot to take the color off.
That's nice and easy then.
Yeah, and because, and I know as far as the boiler goes, we talked about the boiler as something that maybe we could try to do with some of the IAQ stuff. The tough thing with these smaller schools of doing a boiler project is their Efficiency Vermont and the IAQ grant money is not going to be willing to support anything that is not a carbon neutral per se, basically wood heat setup. So as long as you want to stay with oil or propane, you're not going to get a whole lot of help. You might be able to get some help on pumps, variable speed pumps, VRSs, but other than that, there's not a lot of help out there. So we kept it in there. I know that's how we kept to highlighting it. I'm not sure why it still is.
But I just want to remind everybody, all we're going to vote on is FY 23. Everything out there is just for planning purposes. So when we're here next year, we can talk about FY 24 because that will be the budget we're on. So when we ask the voters to vote on this too, they're not voting to replace a roof in 20, whatever it is, 32. All we're asking them to do is to approve the expenditure for this year, and this is just to give them to show them why we raise sometimes more than we spend, because there's some years we spend more than we raise.
Rich, one more question.
Mark, if you promise one more question, it's a promise you can't keep.
I promise it's only one more question on this document.
There you go, buddy.
So Greg, speaking of the IAQ, and yes, I understand, Rich, that these are not in fiscal year 23. In Wardsboro, the HRV and the air handlers, and Dover, the cabinet heaters, are those something that you think might be able to get in?
Yeah, we can try. That's for sure. I've got about $330,000 worth of projects waiting for this to clear, and I actually hadn't even thought of it. It's a great point. So yeah, I'll have to revisit the document, see what units they were referring to. Are they referring to every single one or just some? My guess is at 63,000, they're probably only looking at 4, 5, or 6 units maybe. We just recently had a quote on one at Leland and Gray, and it was $13,400.
He froze again.
They're talking about, and then maybe we'll try to get those rolled in there and see. you know, I'm not afraid to ask for a lot of the money when they have it.
Great, thank you, Greg, and Rich, thank you for giving me the time.
Oh, it's your time. I'm just here to make sure we keep up rolling. Is there?
One other thing, please.
Yeah.
Chad Starro, I just wanted you to see for FY23 in Wardsboro, there, we are, the windows are on there. So, that is where we would attack some of the older looking windows you might see around Wardsboro. So we have spec'd a window at this point, because we're replacing 2 here in the next few weeks. And then those are what we will use moving forward as we put out this spec. So,
Greatly appreciate it. Thank you, Greg.
Yep.
So the next thing is, Matt, can you do this one for us?
Yep, the next one.
So this form here is something that I talked with Lori about. This is something I'm real familiar with because we used to always do this in Dover. And this is where it kind of helps explain to people why we raise what we raise and why we try to be consistent so that we can have a more consistent tax rate. So let's just stick with the capital improvement one up on top. So this is how we get to the previous one that we looked at. That shows what's actually being expended. But if you look here, we're asking to spend we have $196,800 projected to be in the fund at the end of the year. We're going to contribute $75,000. That's what we're going to ask to raise. And then we're looking at spending $131,300, which doesn't make sense because that's not what you show over here.
No, it should show over there.
Yeah, so that's going to have to get fixed because we're only showing 109.
109, yeah.
So anyways, and then there'll be 140 left. So again, all we ask the voters to vote on is the contribution. So, which we last few years we haven't funded it much because we're still trying to figure out the reserves and what was left over from both schools when we closed out those books and moved in to River Valley. So again, doesn't take a lot of discussion, but Lori, we'll just check that and make sure we get our numbers right.
Yeah, I don't know, for some reason it didn't. It does going forward, but something
Yeah, but if
went wonky there.
it's a difference between 20,000, maybe we can reduce the contribution to 70 or something.
Yeah, we didn't put this into the operational budget because they usually do it as a separate article, right?
Yeah.
But we're recommending 95 between the two, so 75 for the capital and 20 for the fleet management. That's what we're recommending right now, but you're right, we could probably reduce that maybe a little bit.
But again, it has to carry out for
Right.
10 years.
Yeah.
So, Mark, do you have a question on this, or is your hand still up from before? No, okay. Any questions on just the capital improvement amount? I don't see any. And then the vehicle, last year we asked for $10,000. We have 4 vehicles, a tractor, a food service vehicle, and a couple buses. And Matt, what are the 2 buses? Do you remember?
I don't, off the top
They're
of my
about
head.
10 years old.
Yeah, right around 10 years old, yeah. One is slightly less than that, I think. One is 8 and one is 9.
But do we think that bus 2's really going to last to 32, another 7 years? 8 years?
Well, it's hard to tell. They're going pretty good.
Okay,
We are putting money into them, but.
I just asked Lori, and she will do it for us the next time, is bus 1 will have a year, bus 2 will have a year, and the food service vehicle will have a year. So, and again, this is why we're asking for $10,000, or $20,000, I'm sorry, each year for contribution. Go ahead, Dwight. Dwight?
Trying, there it is.
Oh.
Thanks, Rich. For bus 1 in fiscal year 23, it's my understanding that there's federal funds available for electric buses, especially for rural areas. I'm wondering if there's something we could look into that and see if that's an option for our district.
So again, we're not asking for money, we're not asking to buy the bus, we're just asking to put the funding in. And then that would come a time, Dwight, when we would actually be working with Greg in the administration to put out a proposal, a bid, and we can definitely, we can look into that at the time.
I'd be happy to help.
Okay. Oh, go ahead, Greg, I'm sorry, I didn't see you.
Yeah, I just didn't want to jump in. So I've been dealing with this with a group from West River. An electric bus is $250,000, and you haven't begun the infrastructure for the charging stations and whatnot. In the winter, when you turn on all the heat and you deal with all that, you drastically lose the mileage you can cover with them. I mean, I'm not sure exactly how long your routes are here, as far as total mileage. But that's some of the issues that I've run into so far as roadblocks, is if you buy, there's some groups that are willing to help you if you're willing to do a full fleet, but they were looking for a minimum of like 10 or 11 buses, and then they were willing to provide all the maintenance and the infrastructure. But again, it was going to be millions and millions of dollars of initial input. So it's been a struggle to try to gain a good footing, and the cost effectivity I don't know if is quite there yet. Maybe by bus too.
So, and again, that's nothing that we're gonna be decided or be voted on at this meeting. That's something we can definitely look into. And again, like you said, Dwight, and there could be other funds available for electric buses. If we're all good on transportation, I'd like to move on to fund balances. Lori.
So that is the draft budget, which is our draft audit. Right there, yeah. Financial statement draft, yeah, good. So you're gonna go all the way to page 73.
So what form you want them to go to the audit?
Yes, we're going to the audit, and it's on page 73.
And that was part of the package that you sent out?
It was.
Is that correct, 73?
Well, it's 73 on here, but it might not be.
60.
Yeah, there you go.
So Lori, give us a long and short of it.
All right, so the short of it is that we have a draft in whatever month we're in, December, which is amazing, right? So
it's not 3 years later?
It's not 3 years later. I really pushed for this. Our office pushed for this. So I'm actually very proud that we can deliver this draft to you. And really, there's just a few changes that I need to make for it to turn into a final, which I just haven't been able to do yet. But Schedule F shows all the different funds that you currently have here. The only thing it does not show is the capital, and we'll show that in a second. So Schedule F is, you have some miscellaneous grants. You have a fund, if you want to just go up a little bit. Yeah, $48,000 there. Food service, as we talked about, had a surplus for fiscal year 21 of $19,000. And then, moving right across. So the one you really want to pay attention to is the reserve fund. So in 21, you used $200,000 to buy down the tax rate. So you can see the transfer in and transfer out. But you are ending the year with 600, or beginning fiscal year 22 with a fund balance of $625,000 in the reserve account. So then also in fiscal year 22, as I mentioned, there will be some amount of surplus based on the tuition students not having as many tuition students, or having some of them move out that moved in that we budgeted for. So I anticipate, I don't have a solid number. Right now, the budget is running well under budget, about $800,000 right now. I don't expect that to be the fund balance, because there is some tuition that just hasn't been encumbered yet. The schools haven't sent the bills. So, I don't really want to throw out that number yet, but I know there will be some amount of surplus. unless something unforeseen happens.
So Lori, the 625, 532, that doesn't include the fund balance of the transportation in the building, does it? Or-
No, so if we go to the next page, there, that's your capital reserve there. So, and if we can just go back for 1 second, I wanted to mention one more thing about that 625 is that you also put aside some money to buy down the tax rate for fiscal year '22 that needs to come out of that as well. Yeah, it was another 200, I believe, yeah.
So, but that's a lot healthier than what we thought last year, but we don't want to jinx ourselves. And that way we can discuss how we use any surplus in the future, because we did want to leave a little there. And we also maybe can use that amount to transfer into the reserve for the building and for the transportation, so we don't have to raise taxes. And we can give some back to buy the tax rate down if we have to.
Lots of different options.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions on the audit? And you're pretty comfortable, because I know in the past you've had audits that we haven't felt at all comfortable with.
I'm very comfortable with that 625 number.
With this audit?
I am.
Okay. So I'd like to just say really quickly, Matt and Tammy and Lori and Bill and Greg, pat yourselves on the back, because this is pretty healthy surplus. That's over 10%. What's that surplus from what we budgeted?
You're 6 million, right?
So it's
6
about
million.
10%?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, Mark is patting you on the back too. Thank you, Mark.
Thanks, Matt.
Go ahead, Bill.
I take zero credit. That is absolutely Greg, Lori, Matt, and Tammy. Looking at decision by decision. They are empowered to make them, and they make them well on behalf of the board, so.
But
I do
it's
nothing
also,
to do with
it's
that.
the person that put the team together too.
I just smile and say, good decision.
That's good. And you know enough to stay out of the way.
I do.
Okay, is everybody good with that? If we are, I think, okay, Mark, hang on one sec. Lori, and that covers your FY22 outlook too, right?
It does, yeah. I don't have a solid outlook at this point, but I do know there will be some amount of surplus.
Okay, so fund balances in FY22 outlook. Go ahead, Mark.
I have a semi-unrelated but related question. When do the CLA numbers come in for fiscal year '23?
They'll be coming out usually by January 1st. We see them, don't we?
Yeah, just after the first, yeah.
What are we at? Do you know?
Okay, thank you.
Well, Dover, I don't know what Wardsboro is.
Really?
Yeah. Wardsboro was a little lower last year, I think.
They dropped.
Yeah, I would expect to see as hot as real estate's been, Mark, I would expect to see our CLA not that good this year.
That's exactly why I was asking.
Yeah. No, it's a good year to have a surplus, believe me.
The yield did come out, and that is up from previous years, but CLAs are expected to be down, so.
But also remember last year, the yield was nowhere near what they said in December.
Yes.
Again, this is why last year when we talked about, having a meeting earlier, and I always argue for a later meeting, because the numbers are just, they're throwing darts at a wall a lot of times. I mean, there is some method to their madness, but until the legislative people go up to Montpelier and do their thing too, there's no guarantee any of those numbers are going to be close. So if you guys are all good, I'd like to move off the budget. And again, remember, this is not your last chance. Go ahead, Laura.
Yeah, I also just wanted to say thank you to Lori and Matt and Tammy. This is, really easy to follow, well presented, it makes sense. And it feels, I know, everything is really crazy right now, and this does not feel crazy. This feels well done and responsible, so thank you very much.
Much better than last year.
Yes.
Okay, if you guys are all good, I'm going to let Lori and Greg go, because I don't think I need them for anything else. This is your last chance to ask them a question tonight.
Be careful.
Okay, Thank you, Lori, very much. Thank you for coming in person. It was nice to see you. I wasn't sure if you were a real person anymore. Okay, we're gonna move on, principals reports. There was a written principals report. No, there wasn't a written principals
Not this
report.
time.
There was a superintendent's report. So the principal, Lori or Tammy, Lori, you're going.
I'm going.
Matt or Tammy, do you have anything for principal's report? Tammy, you can go first.
Sure, I wrote down a couple of notes if you will entertain them.
Go ahead.
Okay, great. So teachers attended the second of 3 Keys to Literacy trainings the Monday of the Thanksgiving break. And I was happy to observe several teachers already putting the activities in place for the training the week after we got back. So kudos to them. In addition, on early dismissal days, we've been teaming up with DEEP, the Vermont Energy Education Program, and each classroom is working on an energy-related project. The 3rd through 6th graders are testing the energy efficiency of the windows, which will be key if we're replacing windows next year. So they'll have some data that they can present, possibly. So they've been taking the temperature of the windows as well as using like a thermal gun to check some places around the school. So this is a community project that ties well to the Wardsboro Energy Committee, and several of the members of the Energy Committee in Wardsboro had made some window inserts for 2 of the classrooms. So the kids are testing the windows that have inserts versus ones that don't, and comparing the data and information. So they've been busy doing that, which is exciting. I also wanted to echo what Sam and Tracy had said. Thank you to the board for granting the Staff Wellness Day. The time was much appreciated by the teachers and administrators and other school staff, and many of them commented how they felt rested after coming off of that week and that break, so that was great. The after-school program has started up at Wardsboro 2 days per week. It started on the 29th, so Tuesdays and Wednesdays. In addition, we have some community members and parents who are providing an additional day on Thursdays at the library. So some people have volunteered, and kids are getting off the bus on Thursday afternoons at the library, and they're offering after-school activities there. And then for the next after-school session, we're hoping to offer some additional days in addition to the Tuesdays and Wednesdays. The ski program for the 7 to 12-year-olds will begin after the holiday break. Wardsboro will be skiing on Tuesday afternoons. And then we also have a group of parents who will be overseeing a program for the younger kids, since Non-Snow's not offering any programming to them. And then our art teacher and STEAM coordinator is coordinating an all-school STEAM project where we will be making a lit gingerbread community, and we're hoping that the older kids can take a video of the finished product to share with the larger community, so maybe I can share that with all of you. So that's exciting. And then we also have a couple of special programs scheduled coming up before the holiday break. One will be a school winter-themed craft project, and the other is some programming from the Grafton Nature Museum, and both the programs are sponsored by the Wardsboro School Club. So just a couple of updates of things that are happening around the school.
Thank you, Tammy. Let's let Matt run through his, and then we'll have questions.
Yeah. So what's fascinating about hearing Tammy's list is that we talk about equity, and there's so much that's similar in both buildings. It's really nice to hear those things. Sometimes they line up, and Tammy and I plan them, and sometimes it's just a miracle, and they happen like that. So the early dismissal days have been a wonderful addition this year. It's giving us time to work toward a curriculum mapping program called Toddle. It's a internet platform that allows us to centralize all of our IB documentation, our unit plans, our lesson plans. So it's taken us all fall to implement that with all the standards that come into play, but we're enthusiastic about that giving us more opportunity with the IB documentation to be more universal, more standard, and on a platform that's well known. It is also the platform that we're planning to launch our personalized learning plans on, that we were hopeful to do that this fall. That is not going to happen on schedule. for many reasons, but we're optimistic that we can work that in moving forward. I'm not going to put a date down just yet. Also wanted to thank the board for the mental health day. It was wonderful to have that time. I'm really glad to hear the staff on tonight making their thank yous as well. Let's see, we've got our date for the IB self-study. We're up for self-study. We'll have a visiting team virtually on April 13th this spring, so we're excited about that. The coordinators have been working a lot of extra time on this self-study year, so I want to thank them publicly for that work and their organization in getting materials out. The after-school program has been running for a few months now at Dover, 2 days a week. And we've also added the third day. However, that is being completely run and managed by the library, the Dover Free Library. And so kids are taking the bus on Wednesdays to the Dover Free Library and participating in that with the new children's librarian, Bodil Morse. Let's see. Ski program is happening at Dover in the almost identical way it's happening at Wardsboro. We're on Thursdays though, they're on Tuesdays. And again, the parent response has been great. There's a whole group of younger parents that are planning a program for the younger kids that may or may not use Mount Snow. They may use the Dover Town trails, they may use snowshoes, and providing some other options. So we're really enthusiastic about that as well. We also hosted the Grafton Nature Museum this fall for a program on raptors, which was wonderful. And that was also funded by the school club, the parents group. So we're really enthusiastic. There are a lot of things going on. Still seems kind of odd not having parents in the building, not having them see what's going on. So one of my goals this spring is to work on ways that we can somehow figure out how to give parents a better window into the school and into the classrooms. We miss them. We miss school sing and having that public presence. So that's something we'll be looking at. There you go, Reader's Digest.
Okay, are there any questions for Matt or Tammy? Go ahead, Mark.
Matt, can you just bring us up to date on the pump track? I saw a lot of charges in the financials. Just curious where that stands.
Yes, absolutely. The pump track is functionally complete. Kids have been using it. They've been using it in PE already. After some kids tried it. I don't know what kind of use it's getting on the weekends, but we were able to get all the work done under budget, a little bit later than we had hoped, but it came out really great. They had to do some additional drainage to make sure that the tracks wouldn't wash away, but it's been really fun. The kids are having a good time with it, and I look forward to, we're waiting for some signage that will be added from the insurance company and just some general signage to try to tie it into the trail structure that's through the woods around the school property. So really enjoying it, having a good time. The kids seem to love it, and it seems to be just about the right difficulty level for our age group. So
all good, Mark?
That's great to hear.
Okay, any other questions? Seeing none, we do have a written superintendent's, his cabinet report. Was there any questions on that? Bill, anything you want to add? Or?
I just want to thank the Windham County legislative group of House members. They met generously with the superintendents from Windham County last Thursday. They were very inquisitive about how things were operating in schools, and it was a wonderful hour-long conversation. Our legislators are very, very busy people, and it was very nice to have an open forum to be able to share the challenges of running school systems in our current environment, and just very much appreciate their interest, curiosity, and continued support for school system in Windham County. And then I just wanted to publicly thank the board chair from River Valleys, Mr. Rich Werner. Mr. Werner is one of the 2 board members that is part of our Justice, Equity, diversity and inclusion team for the Wyndham Central Supervisory Union. We have 20 members of the team. 6 of them are students, 14 are adults. And Mr. Werner represents both River Valleys as well as Wyndham Central Supervisory Union. And I just very much appreciate that extra time that he is giving to increasing the awareness of how we operate our schools and staying curious and staying involved. So that's all I got for you tonight.
Thank you. Okay, I don't see any hands up, so I'm going to move forward to flag follow-up discussion, possible action. Mark, I think you asked that this be on the agenda, so I'll let you take it.
I'm working on a policy, trying to get some. I've gotten some sample policies from across the country. I'm trying to put something together that will make sense for River Valleys, at least from my perspective. And I'll be bringing it to the policy committee. It does not have to do with the flag itself. It has to do with the pledge.
Okay, so just is there any, and sometimes I get forgetful then, was there somebody else that wanted to discuss the flag? Or was it the pledge? Mark, I'm sorry if I got that wrong.
That's okay.
Okay, there's nobody who wants to discuss the flag in the bill. I mean, I think state law says, or isn't there a rule or something in education?
You have it out front.
You have to have, yeah, okay. You do have to display a flag out front. I remember in the old days when we had the really lousy superintendent's evaluation process I remember that was like one of the first questions, and, does the superintendent display the flag in front of the school? Okay, so Mark, I'm gonna change this to Pledge of Allegiance discussion. So do you have any, that you're working on a policy, do you have anything else that you want to bring up or discuss about it tonight?
No, not at this point.
Okay. Is there any questions or anything anybody wants to ask of Mark? Cool, then let's move on to donation to Rescue Inc. This is also you, Mark. Don't think I'm picking on you, buddy.
I'm just glad you put them all together. So Rescue Inc. has been putting on vaccination clinics across the entire state. They've done a lot in Wyndham County for Wyndham Central, including our schools, both for our teachers, administration, and for now for students. And I'd like the River Valley School District to make a small donation to them as a thank you for the work that they've done. And I will make a motion. I will move that we donate $250 to Rescue Inc. as a thank you.
Okay, do we have a second to Mark's motion?
I'll second it for the purposes of discussion.
Okay, so Laura seconds it. Peter, did you get that? Mark moved for $250. Okay, Laura seconds it. Mark, you kind of said what you had. Do you have anything else you want to add?
I don't think so. I will. I guess I'll add one other thing, which is that I personally will be making a donation to them in addition. I just think it's really important to support our EMS organizations that are supporting our schools. And that's what they're doing right now.
Okay, Laura, you were second.
I am all in favor of recognizing or some act of service for rescue. I agree. Our rescue is doing a lot of work throughout the state. I think they're being compensated fairly well for the work that they're doing throughout the state. So I guess I would be more inclined, Mark, to use those funds to maybe purchase them lunch, or I don't know. And I don't even know if that's appropriate at all, or to send them a thank you note, or You know, so that's all I have to say.
I do know, I talked to the operations director down there, and they do get compensated from the state, but they also do fundraising to cover their other, and some of the money from that stuff goes towards, towards their regular operations. And they are our primary ambulance for the Wardsboro building. They do cover the town of Wardsboro. They have a place in West Townsend, so they're not our primary ambulance in Dover, but our primary ambulance couldn't provide the people to do the vaccinations, so. Any other discussion? And if there isn't, are you ready to vote? Go ahead, Mark.
I just want to say, Laura's right, they are being compensated by the state, they're being paid by the, by the Department of Health for their vaccination clinics. But they do rely on donations for a lot of the work that they do.
Thank you, Mark. Dwight, go ahead.
Thanks, Rich. Yeah, I mean, there's no question that the work that they've done throughout the community and the state needs to be recognized. I guess my only concern was I'm not familiar with any other, donations that the school board or the district has made for other organizations. I just don't want to set a precedent where we're giving, making donations to other areas as well that may be deserving. That would be my only concern. There's no question they've done tremendous work, but I don't know this is something we normally do as a district and as a board, and I don't want to set a precedent, if you will.
Okay, hang on one second, Mark. So we do make a donation to the mover. They call it a donation, and we've done that from Dover for high school transportation. And we have done small amounts to different organizations in the past, at least from Dover. I'm not specifically recalling anything right now from River Valleys, unless Tammy or Matt or Bill can think of anything.
The mover.
Yeah, just the mover. Go ahead, Mark.
I was going to say, in addition to the mover, the coalition.
Oh, yeah, we just voted on that, didn't we? I can remember old stuff, Mark, not new stuff.
I think a $250 donation is relatively minor for us, and I'm sure that Rich or I could speak to their operations chief and suggest that they buy lunch for their crews for with that money.
Go ahead, Chad.
Well, I think Dwight raises a very valid point, but as Mark has reinforced with our donation to the coalition and noting that this year in particular with rescuing two of the vaccination clinics, there are actions that are directly impacting our students in our school district, and we're not just looking to bolster other public entities that do also require financial stewardship from the community. So in that, I would sway myself to supporting Mark's motion.
Okay. If there's no other discussion, I don't see anybody else. Are you guys ready to vote? Guys, ladies and gentlemen of the board. Okay, so all in favor of approving a $250 donation to Rescue Inc. With the suggestion that it buys the crew's lunch. All those in favor say aye.
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 It appears as though it's a unanimous decision. It is a unanimous decision, so Bill, will you take care of that?
You got it.
Okay. Mark, do me a favor, write up a brief note that we can put in with the check, since it was yours. It's not as punishment, but I think it would be nice just to have a note from the board.
I'll be happy to do that.
Okay. I think we've covered all the new business. I'm going to just ask on old business, can we go to Articles of Agreement, review board apportionments after census? Because we told Randy to come back at 7:45, and I see Vicki, can you let Randy know we're up? And if she isn't, then we'll do some other stuff till he shows up.
business? Did we take this up?
Yeah, Rich, I'm actually here on the laptop. It just got Vicky's name on it.
Okay, so let's, if it's okay, I'd like to talk, and yeah, it shouldn't have been old business, but articles of agreement, review board apportionment after census discussion and possible action. So in our articles of agreement, there was an original setup of the board. And this goes back to when we did the study committee, and that's why Randy was here, because he was on the study committee. He was one of the people representing Dover. I believe there was 9 of us, 3 from each town, Randy? And
That's right, yeah.
it was you, I, and who else from Dover? Oh,
Laura.
I'm sorry. You're sitting too close. And then there was 3 from Wardsboro and 3 from Marlboro, and I'm not going to try to guess their names. And I know at one time, this was a real topic of discussion, how we apportioned the board. And I had thought that we had put something in that said that, there would be a minimum of 3 board members from each town, up to like 5,000 in population. We made it a really high bar so that it wouldn't be like one district overweighted the other district. And especially with having 3 districts, no one district could outvote the other district. However, with the 2020 census, there's been a big change in population. So what actually came out in Article 9 was forming districts, and Dwight was on the board too, Dwight was on the committee from Wardsboro. Sorry, Dwight. A forming district's representation on the Unified District Board would be closely proportional fraction in its population compared to the aggregate population of the Unified District. Initial composition would be based on the 2010 census and shall be recalculated promptly following the release of each subsequent decennial census. The board is authorized to reapportion the board, including increasing and decreasing the number of school directors. However, at no time will a forming district have less than 1 board member on the board, subject to the previous sentence. Each proportionality calculation shall be rounded to the nearest whole number. So we can have partial students, but we can't have partial board members. I don't understand it. So the population back in 2010 had 56% of the population in Dover and 44% in Wardsboro. And now we have 67% versus 33% in Wardsboro. So that is what we are here to discuss tonight. So is there any thoughts, questions, comments? I did try to look through my old paperwork because I could have swore that we had done it, that there was a minimum of 3 and it was a high bar. It was like a 3,000 or 4,000 people bar that we thought neither town would ever get to. Just because we felt as the study group that it was important to have equal representation. Go ahead, Laura.
So I just want to clarify, the language in our bylaws is enabling, but it doesn't require us to make the change. It allows us to make the change.
It says the board is authorized to reapportion the board, including increasing or decreasing. It doesn't say we have to. It doesn't say you shall. The board shall reapportion.
So I guess I would say I'm not super excited to take this up in the middle of a pandemic while we're dealing with apportionment, which is potentially going to be dicey and messy in the legislature as well. And I might like to see us maybe talk about this for town meeting or provide some information or, I don't know that this is great for us to take up this year.
Well, and again, I think the thing is...
I don't know that I think that it's great for us to take up this year.
But if we don't take it up this year, we gotta wait another 10 years.
We do?
Well, that's the next census.
Well,
Mark, I'm sorry, Chad, if you would indulge me for 1 second. Mark, you actually brought this up, and I forgot to let you speak first, so I'm sorry. Did you want to speak to it first before I...
And I was just gonna say, the Article 9 does say shall be recalculated promptly following the release of each subsequent decennial census. That's the board composition, ... shall be recalculated, which was what Ed brought it up.
Okay, thank you. Chad?
Well, I think I echo some of what Laura's just said. Following the real estate moves pretty closely, familiarly as it is, that many of the Jumpman residents may very well have been, a situational and not intended to be, long time for whatever reason. And I know that's tough to, suss out. I mean, the numbers are what they are because they were requested in 2020 and given at that point in time. Certainly that is a big jump, and looking at the breakdown, I will say personally, as the low man on the totem pole, was a little nervous because it could very well mean that as a Wardsboro resident, losing the seat, and I would certainly defer to Kate and Dwight, given their longevity on the board, and my appointment versus election. I certainly understand as Mark's reading that this could very well be a requirement. So it's a very, much of a tightrope for me with, a lot of balance to be, put forth. But I would raise a concern, and it's hard to question the census because it's a raw number, but that, a lot of the motivation for the increase in permanent residency may very well have been short-lived. And therefore perhaps an ingenuous impact upon the makeup of the board for the next decade, as it might be.
Mark, I'm going to go to Randy first, and I'll get back to you.
Yeah.
And then
sorry, I know it says Vicky. So yeah, Rich asked me to weigh in tonight, and he is right about a lot of discussion in the study group about equity and keeping sort of equal weights among the different towns and the inclusion. And frankly, I think if you pursued this and went to a 4-2 board or a 3-2-1, I think politically that doesn't look very good for Dover, and I don't think it would be a really smart move for this board to do it. I think you're a very high-functioning group right now. I spent a lot of time reading reports from different school boards, and you guys really do a great job. And I think that could jeopardize that, and I don't think that's something you want to do. And I think you've met the letter of the law in terms that you've recalculated it. I don't read anything in there that says you have to act on that recalculation. So I'll agree with Laura. And I would urge you, from my historical perspective, to not do this. That's just my perspective on it. So thanks.
Dwight and then Mark.
Yeah, I just wanted to thank Randy for coming back. It's been a while since we were at those meetings for the restructuring. And, from the perspective of Wardsboro, it was definitely a large issue. It was a big issue, and it was very important, I know, to the people in town. It came up at meetings that in our town of Wardsboro that we have equal representation, and that was something that was a major concern. And it didn't seem like it could happen at the time. If you look at the population numbers in 2010, I guess only it could maybe push people to change the population would be a pandemic, and no one could have predicted that back when we were forming the district. So it is a large issue. I would also urge the board to stay as equal representation based on what was said back then during the restructuring, and something I would be in favor to not change the composition of the board at this time. And to also recognize what Chad said was that, the numbers probably was a 1-year bump, and being in the business that I'm in, I'm fully aware that a lot of these people that came into Dover have moved out of town as well. And I think the numbers in the school, the children's school, also represent that change back as well. So I certainly would hope we would stay the current structure if we have the ability to do so. I would like to do that as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Dwight. Mark, one quick sec. Kate, we have everybody speak once if they want to before we go second. Do you have anything else you want to throw out there, or?
I think it's been a really good discussion, and I think, I'd like to echo the points, like, 2020 was a totally abnormal year in so many ways, and, it is kind of a kicker that was the census year that could possibly change the 10-year dynamic. And I agree, based on the numbers that we saw coming in and out of the schools in the last couple of years, I really think that equal representation between the two schools, the two towns on the board, makes a huge impact. And I really appreciate the work that both towns put into it. So, yeah, that's kind of where I stand about it. No change.
Thank you, Kate. Go ahead, Mark.
Just a few things. There was a lot of work put in by people in Dover to get census numbers up. So, and for the first time, the census included a second homeowner category. So I don't think you can say that all the increase is because of the pandemic. That said, if we're not going to adjust the board, I'd want to see a change made to our articles of agreement. I do read the articles as saying we need to make a change, and if we're not going to, I'd like to go down the road of making that change to the articles so that we don't have to.
Okay. Go ahead, Laura.
I'd like to suggest that we have an attorney review whether or not that's necessary. If we get a legal opinion on this before we proceed, whether or not we need to do it or we don't. I think we are maybe going to chase our tail a little bit about whether or not we should. And if we should, then we should. And if we don't have to, then.
Well, so I think we have two issues here. Just if you guys will indulge me for 1 sec. I think the first issue is that it says that we are authorized to reapportion the board. Mark feels that it's that we shall be recalculated promptly, and then the initial board will be based on and shall be recalculated promptly following the release of each subsequent census. The board is authorized to reapportion the board. The board is including increase or decreasing the numbers. So I guess the two issues are, one, do we want to consider, we can vote to reapportion the board. So we have the ability to make that vote, and we could do that and present that to the voters, because then we would not be voting, we wouldn't vote a Wardsboro member onto the board this year, because that would probably be the last position. The other two people have 2 years, but we would have to either do another Dover member, or we would have to do an at-large member if that's the route we chose to go. If we choose not to go that route, and we don't want to change the makeup of the board, then I think we should get the legal opinion. Should we change it, or does this allow us not to do that? Now, the only other thing is, somebody could, if we voted to not change the board, then there could be a voter from either town who could come and bring it up to us and say, hey, this is what it says, I believe you're doing wrong by not voting. So that could require a legal opinion too. So I think those are the ways we can go. It says you shall do it, but it doesn't also say when you have to do it. It says immediately.
Yeah, I don't agree that it says I don't agree that it is binding. I think we need a legal opinion. I think it says that we shall count and look, and then we may. reapportion.
Well, it doesn't say may, but it just says,
Is authorized to.
right. So let's go through one more time. Go ahead, Chad.
Well, I was just going to follow in Laura's recommendation, as you said that because we could get there, with a concerned citizen doing their due diligence, why don't we be proactive? And I'd like to make a motion that we get a legal referral to determine the necessity of an immediate recalculation that would then be reapportioned by the board.
Okay, you don't have to make a motion to get a legal opinion. I mean, you can if you want to, but the board can just decide to do that by consensus. But if you'd like to make that motion, you can, you definitely can. So, no, I know he did. But again, he's a new board member too. I don't know if he knows that we don't. So would you like to make that the motion?
I would.
Okay, so your motion is to get a legal opinion as to what? Gotta be pretty specific if it's a motion.
As to the necessity to recalculate for the purpose of reapportionment immediately after the release of census data, as has been put forth to us at this point in time.
I will sit.
Hang on. Peter.
Thought you'd never ask.
Chad, work with Peter.
Try this, move to obtain legal advice as to the necessity of an immediate recalculation for reapportionment of the board immediately after the release of census data.
Before we get a second, Chad, could there also be a question that is also asked of legal counsel if we can not do anything? Because you're asking his opinion as to the immediacy, but it's also what...
No, the question was to the necessity of doing so immediately following calculating, which is this point in time. So the question is of required.
Okay.
I'll second that.
No, Laura's going to second it in 1 second, Mark. Peter, you've got it all written down, right?
What I have written down says, move to obtain legal advice as to the necessity of an immediate recalculation for reapportionment of the board immediately after the release of census data.
Okay, Chad, is that what you said? Is that good?
Yes, that
Okay.
covers it all.
Okay, Laura wanted to second it in the worst way. Sorry, Mark.
For the purposes of discussion, I think the motion is awkwardly worded, Chad, and I would like to suggest that we.
Well, second it and then we can have discussion.
I did, didn't I?
Okay.
Oh, sorry.
Okay,
Sorry.
so hang on. So we have a second to the motion. Okay. Now we open it for discussion. Chad, anything else you'd like to say? You get first dibs at discussion.
I would very much like to hear Laura's clarification for the purpose of moving forward.
Go ahead, Laura.
I think that we could make this simpler, Chad. I think we could, I think the real question is, I think we do have to, I think it says here that we need to count. We need to look at how that goes between the two towns. I don't know that it tells us whether or not we need to change the board. And I think that, I don't know if the rest of the board agrees with me, but that to me is, or Mark, that to me is the question. Are we obligated to change the board representation? That's the question that I would like to have an attorney tell us. I know that we can. Do we have to?
Okay, Mark, go ahead.
Right, that's why the inclusion of the word necessity is what I intended by that.
Hang on, Chad. Go ahead, Mark.
So I agree 100% that we should get advice from legal counsel. I will be voting against this motion because I think we should just be directing our chair to direct the superintendent to give this to the lawyer and ask what our options are.
Okay. Dwight or Kate, do you have any discussion? Go ahead, Dwight.
Yeah, I would agree. I don't know if we're really necessary to be so specific with attorney. Just let's ask for options for timeline, A, are we required? B, what is our timeline for doing this? And also, what is the, what's the process for doing this? Do we bring it to town meeting? What are our options for doing, fulfilling this if we are required? So there are a lot of variables that I think we should kind of keep it open-ended for the attorney.
Okay, Kate, any comment? Thank you, Dwight.
Where's Kate?
Kate's
Oh,
down there.
she's there.
I'm right here. We're flickering power, so I'm on myself. I think it's important to bring it to the lawyer to get a clarification on the language. The language seems very important. It seems like that is going to give us a path forward. And I concur, I believe it was Dwight that was like, let's just take it, direct the superintendent to get that clarification from the lawyer, and I don't think we need a motion to do that.
Okay, so is there any other discussion? Go ahead, Laura.
So I would just like to say that you can, in case you don't know this, you could withdraw your motion also, Chad.
Well, the motion's been made, we've
It
had
has been made.
discussion.
It
Yeah,
has been made.
I think, if we're okay.
Or we could
just-
vote it down. I'm
let's
gonna
just-
vote it down.
Well, it depends, maybe some people are gonna vote for it, I don't know.
Okay.
So, if there's no further discussion, Peter, can you read the motion one more time, please, so we're sure what we're voting on?
Yes, Mr. Sorrow moved to obtain legal advice as to the necessity of an immediate recalculation or reapportionment of the board immediately after the release of census data.
Okay, so that's what you're voting on. So I means we're gonna ask the lawyer that question, and nay means we're not. So all those in favor, please signify so by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, all those against, please signify so by saying nay.
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 Okay, it's not unanimous either way, so we have to do a roll call vote. So Chad, how do you vote?
Aye.
Laura?
No.
Mark?
Nay.
Dwight?
Nay.
Kate?
No.
So I count 4 nays to 1 aye. The chair will not vote. He'll go with the majority. So the motion fails. So let me ask the board this. Are you guys good if I talk with Bill and we talk to an attorney and figure out where we stand and what we need to do or not do and get back to you guys at the next meeting?
Yes.
I am.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So, go ahead, Dwight. I'm sorry.
Okay, one more thing. I think it's a great idea to go to the attorney and get our options. Although, if I read this, it does seem like we have to move to reapportion. So what I would ask is, based on what Mark was talking about, was can we also ask the attorney what are our options for amending this article, and how does that process work as well?
Yeah, I think that the question is, could I ask just, and again, it's not a vote, but is the majority of the board in favor of keeping I hate to say status quo, but keeping the representation at the level it is now? Or is there anybody that's interested in seeing it changed?
I want to follow what the article says, and I believe it says we have to change it. If it doesn't say that, then yeah, I'd be all in favor of keeping it the way it is.
Okay.
And I also want to do what the article says, and I don't think we have to change it, and I would like to not change it if we don't have to.
And I'll be very honest, and I know, Mark, you were at a lot of those meetings too, but
Yeah, yes.
I thought we had fixed that because I know that was a huge point of discussion and we spent a lot of time on that. And I just wish that I still had my old, Mark, if you hadn't fixed my computer, because I can't find my stuff from that committee and I just don't know where it all went. And
I believe that is all still posted.
no, but I had like notes when I was talking with the gentleman that was facilitating us, because it came up at 3 different points. It came up during the original Wyndham Central discussions, It came up during the 3 schools discussion, and then it came up while we were forming the district. So, and I can't find it anywhere. So I don't think the original intent was to try to keep it as uniform as possible. Go ahead, Mark.
So one, I still have your old hard drive, but all I did was copy it, so everything is on your current hard drive. You didn't lose anything. But I'm not sure that intent during the Act 46 committee meetings would hold up. I would have no problem changing the articles if the lawyer says we need to act. But I think that we need to make this as legal and streamlined as we possibly can.
And I do know that in other cases where the legislative intent has been brought into question when things aren't crystal clear. That's the only reason why I'm saying that. Dwight, go ahead and then we'll move on.
All right, thank you. I would agree. I think the intent is really not very strong in that one have a case. It's all written right there. It's written in black and white. So, but there may, and I also, just for my own personal, I'm not opposed to reapportioning if the district were to sway in one direction or the other. However, I think there may be a better way to go about it, and we could also kind of review that than just the 1-year snapshot in 2020. Maybe there are other ways we can go about kind of reviewing how it can be apportioned other than census data.
But I think it goes back to Mark's point is that we need to rewrite that article. So,
yeah, I agree.
So I think this is good discussion. I think Bill will have a lot to take away. Go ahead, Randy.
I got a feeling you are not the only board that's going to go through this year. If I recall right, a lot of what ended up in the Articles of Agreement was boilerplate that was used in many different districts. And I think that's where this final language came from. I could be wrong about that, but my guess is that's probably where it came from. So you're probably one of quite a few that are starting to look at this and realizing, oh, we didn't realize that was only going to be 2 years out and we'd have to reapportion the whole board. So I think it'll be interesting what kind of opinion you get, if anybody's even willing to render one.
Well, but the other thing, Randy, is I remember this was so distasteful to everybody that we wanted to just say it's 3 members no matter what, and we got the opinion back that they said, no, you can't do that. So we said, well, let's set the bar high enough, and that's how we got around it. And somewhere there's a thing from somebody that said that, yes, you can do that.
Well, that might have been said, but it wasn't written into the article, so you can only deal with what's in the article first.
Yeah, okay.
Might as well just go from here.
So I think we're all good. I think, Bill, you're pretty good. And again, it's not a one question, that's all. I mean, we've got leeway now that we can do with Bill whatever we need to with the attorney. So good discussion, Mark. Thank you for bringing this up. I think, Bill, what else do you need to cover with us? Inter-district school choice policy, can you do that for us? And then I think we're all set with you.
Oh, you guys just have to discuss it and come ready.
Okay. Why don't you tell us about it quickly for me?
Yeah, so the Wyndham Central Supervisory Union Board discussed the possibility of an intra-SU. Oh no, this is for you guys. You guys wanted this on here, about your own policy.
Oh, I thought this was the one. I misread this because we need an opinion. Well, we can do it at the next meeting. Okay.
No, this is for you guys.
I'm sorry, guys. And actually, does anybody have anything else for Bill? And if not, I'm going to let him take off.
Thanks, Bill. Amazing leadership in a crisis, ongoing.
Good team. You got a good team. Great team.
2 years.
Thank you.
Hey, Bill, go blue.
Go blue. Thanks.
Okay, so school updates during COVID. Tammy, or thank you. Bill, do I need to sign these?
Well, I'll pick these up.
Okay, because I have to have this approved by the board. Right?
Yeah, no rush.
Oh, no, this was already approved.
That one's good.
Okay, I'm sorry. Matt or Tammy, go ahead.
Matt, go ahead. Let me see it this time.
This is about the number of slides. Number one, intra-district, Laura brought it up last
No,
meeting.
school updates during COVID.
No, we had a couple of cases. We had our first cases around Thanksgiving. Everything worked out. They weren't cases that were transmitted at school. So all the systems came into play. Everybody talked and communicated. The quarantines were observed. And, it went as well as can be expected.
Thank you.
So any questions for the principals on COVID? Looks like everybody's, go ahead, Mark.
It's not a question, I just want to thank Matt for keeping us in the loop with all that he had going on with the cases. Well, thank you, Matt.
You're welcome.
On his mental health day too, Mark, he did that.
Yeah, he's got to take that another day.
I told him that too.
Yeah. Bye. Thank you.
Okay, waiting study task force update. Why don't Mark and Laura, go ahead, Laura, you can go first. Mark just talked. And then we'll go to Mark.
Mark will have a lot more detail. Here's what I'll say to you. I think we have never been closer than we are right now. I can see all of the pieces on the table. I don't necessarily have faith that they are all going to be picked up and used appropriately. But again, we've never been as close as we are right now, and we certainly are not done. So,
Mark, you agree?
I agree that we definitely are not done. I have not been involved in this issue long enough to say that we've never been closer, although I'm 99.9% sure that that's accurate. I believe that, the task force will meet again for the last time on Friday. They will have their final report supposedly out tomorrow, and we'll be voting on it on Friday. They are likely to continue their dual path recommendation of weights based on policy decisions that the task force is recommending, and cost equity, while also pulling ELL out and making it a categorical 8 program.
which is likely to get this.
What I'd say is we have a lot of work ahead of us. We're gonna all have to stay on the ball and push Laura. And say push our legislator, but we already know where our legislator stands.
Push your senators, because this is where it's going to start.
It starts in the Senate.
Starting in the Senate.
That's a good point. Mark, if it starts in the Senate, so we really need to push our senators. So we all have the same senators, so then let's work on that. Maybe we can compose a letter from the board that we can do at the next meeting, and that can get to them before legislative session. So if you have any thoughts on what we should write, let me know. We'll put something together to present to the board at the next meeting.
Let's see what the report says, and then definitely, I think we've got to push all of the legislators. So yeah, I agree.
Any questions for Mark or Laura, or any other thoughts or comments? And just so everybody knows, we do discuss it at the Wyndham Central Executive Committee meetings, when we do them every couple months, so I'm trying to keep up with what's going on. Intra-District Choice Policy Updates. I read this wrong, I'm really sorry. I thought this was the WCSU one. That's going to be on the agenda of the next meeting. So when we had talked about school equity with Matt and Tammy a few meetings ago, one of the things that we do have is that if a child is in Dover and they really want to participate in the STEAM program, they can transfer over to the Wardsboro building. And one of the things that we came up with was we found out that we were pushing kind of heavy on the numbers for transfers. So we asked if Matt and Tammy can come back to us and give us, does that policy need to be readjusted? And as Mark said, I think Mark brought up at the last meeting, is that gets talked about we had that so it gets updated yearly so we could have that discussion. So Matt or Tammy, is there any reason to adjust the numbers or to look at the numbers, or what do you guys think?
Go ahead, Tam.
I think it's a discussion for the board.
Well, the question is where are we at with those numbers? Are we still have plenty of leeway, or is there too many movements or not enough? So that, I think that's what we were asking the administration for, unless I got it wrong.
So we're at the maximum number of students from Wardsboro to Dover at the moment.
Are we
If
turning kids away?
We have not turned anyone away. We have not had anybody ask, but we would have to address that if we get another choice request.
Mark or Kate, do you remember the policy well enough? Can the board make that adjustment come the time when the parents have to notify the school that they want to move?
I believe, well, with the policy committee will be taking this up at our January meeting. And I believe, I don't have it right in front of me, but I believe the policy has a clause at the end that the board makes a final decision. So I think there is leeway, but we'll bring the second meeting in January. I think we will bring any updates that we think are necessary, and I will ask Tammy and Matt if you can join us for that meeting so that we can go over that.
Is everybody okay with that? Don't see.
Go
ahead.
I'm okay with that. Do we typically, so I'm okay with that. Do you typically have the administrators at the policy committee meetings? You do? Okay.
Yes.
Great.
If they can.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so then Mark, we'll have that discussion when we do that policy with you and Kate.
Sounds good.
Okay.
I like these microphones.
Website update. Mark, you want to do that? Sorry I had to cut out early last time, guys, but I got yelled at. I was too late.
So,
Not me.
website, the decision was made to contact the references for Beehively. We divvied those up. I know Chad heard from one, and Dwight heard, oh, you did hear from both. Okay, so Chad heard from both, Dwight heard from one. I have not gotten callbacks on either of the ones that I had, and I don't, unless something changed, I don't think Kate had from hers either. Kate?
I reached out to one school that was listed in the RFP, and I did not hear back. I did try via phone and email, but it sounded like Dwight and Chad both their reports back. They did excellent reports back, so that was great.
I have real concerns about one aspect of one of Chad's reports back.
So Mark, do you want to try to move it forward today, or do you want to give them till next meeting for the people to get back to everybody?
Well, I think coming out of the holiday week, it's worth putting another phone call out to them. I think I'd also suggest that we go to our second one and make those calls at the same time, so that when we come back, was it the 15th, 14th, whatever, in 2 weeks?
20th.
Okay, the 20th, we can make a final decision.
Go ahead, Chad.
Well, upon delivering the feedback that I had from both schools, Mark and I exchanged some emails back and forth, and I appreciate his professionalism in the EIT field that was as much an education as this whole process has been for me. And it's definitely raised some additional concerns, that I have. And I agree that with Mark's train of thought, that it would be worthwhile for us to get additional recommendations from our second and possibly our third place finisher in our proposal run-up. I had some reservations in speaking, with my second call was to the young women's school in the Bronx. And, honestly, I felt like the administrator who was in charge of that just needed something done, did not necessarily do her due diligence in understanding the process. And, as much as I had a nice conversation with her, it wasn't a reassuring push that, Beehive is the best choice for what we're looking to do. With that said, the public school in Connecticut, the administrator was very much on point, and, he's the one who, based on conversation that came back to Mark, raised some concerns that I think Mark addressed very poignantly with me. So again, I'm reaffirming what, Mark's train of thought to get additional information to, bolster our non-professional diligence.
I had to leave early last time, so I didn't think we had ranked them. I thought we just had, we had the 3 finalists.
No, we did.
You did rank?
Yeah.
Okay, so how are we, what does the rest of the board want to do?
How many references do we have?
For Beehively, we had 7.
That have been made?
That calls that have been made,
And
attempts, we've heard back from 3.
And of the 3, were any of them bad, of the 3?
No, I think overall they were good, but the concern that I have from the women's school, I don't remember if that, Chad, if that was the name of the school you spoke to, concern that I had was they gave what appeared to be, they being Beehively, gave some incorrect information to their customer. That raised some concerns with me, information that somebody outside the IT field probably wouldn't have picked up on. So without hearing from more references, I would be uncomfortable moving forward with Beehively.
Okay. So the recommendation is to go to additional, to get the rest of the recommendations.
To continue trying to get the remaining 4, and to get recommendations for at least one other, not both of the other ones that we had ranked at the highest, just so we can move forward when we meet next time.
Go ahead, Chad.
So Mark, I think the bigger concern was from the Sprague Public Schools in Connecticut. That was William Hull, who's their superintendent. And is it worthwhile to discuss directly what, and I think there are really 2 concerns that we had with them. Is it worth bringing those up by name?
I'd leave that up to the chair.
Yeah,
I was going to avoid getting into the weeds.
Yeah, we don't need to have names of anybody.
I think he means, by name, I think he means the topics, not the individual people.
Hang on a second, guys. It's a contract, but this is not, so here's the issue. Usually if you're having a contractual discussion, you can do that in executive session. So we can say we didn't like this company because we thought that they lied to us during the presentation or something. However, it's usually also the contract, it states in there that if people have pre-information, then it may make, like if we're gonna discuss enter into a contract with one or 2 groups and we publicize who those 2 groups are ahead of time, then that could let other people maybe say, oh, well, I'm not going to waste my time and bid with them. I don't know, Laura's concern is if we're talking about another company and we say something not flattering, then we could be opening ourselves up for liability. I don't really see it as I don't see it as an executive session item. I mean, I don't think we're gonna say anybody's awful, but I just think that there's some concerns. Yeah?
Okay, so I guess I would love us to just get the rest of the, I mean, and if it takes us until after the holidays to get the rest of them, then.
Well, so Mark, your recommendation is the person who was a guru of this, is that we check with the rest of the number one candidate. Is that what you're? Oh, you're muted, Mark. Oh.
Thank you. I personally have made 2 phone calls with voicemails to both of the references and have not heard back yet. Whether or not I will or not is another story, but I'd suggest that we have at least 2 calls out to each reference from our number one, and that we divvy up the references from number 2 and or number 3, and start that process. That would be my recommendation, because the longer we, if we wait 2 weeks between every meeting, well, obviously we wait between 2 weeks between every meeting, we could just drag this out for a really long time.
Yeah.
And I'd like to not do that.
Okay, so here's my question to the board. Do we want to start checking references of the number 2 candidate, and those of you that were given assignments from the number 1 candidate, follow up on your assignments and see if you can get a call back? Go ahead, Dwight.
Yeah, I'm happy to make another phone call too for the other ones. I think it's a good process. This is a major investment that we're making, and it's not just this year, but it's a continuing investment. So I don't want to drag it out for a month like Mark said, but the more we can get done now and next meeting, and hopefully we can make a decision then. So I'm happy to help and make some more calls.
Okay, Kate, we haven't heard from you.
It's one of those things where, I really want to take action and get things done, but at the same time, like, it is a big investment. It's money that we worked hard to get approved in the community. So let's take all top 3 candidates. Let's get referrals or references from all of them. I can make a couple phone calls. The next 2 weeks are really busy for me, but I'll do my best. And we'll all report back at the next meeting and just kind of make a path forward then.
Okay, Laura, do you get any comment? Chad, are you all good?
Yeah, and happy to accept a couple more responsibilities for getting feedback from our second and third contenders. My only question, and I guess it's more procedural, with the concerns that we have from the references that I did receive, is an executive session the appropriate place to discuss those? Because I think, as Mark and I had exchanged, input through email, I think it's appropriate for that to be heard by, all members, though I think everyone was copied on the emails, but, having a discussion about the concerns that have been raised is important.
So here's what I think we can do is, let me look into that question if we need to go into executive session for that, or if we can go into executive session for that. Do we want to do, I think we're all pretty much in agreement that we try to get the rest of the references from the number 1, that those of you that made phone calls, just make one more phone call. And then I think, do we want to do the second place person? Do we want to split those up using the same questions? Or do we want to do the second, third place, which means everybody's gonna have to just, take on a couple extra ones?
And there's standard questions that we're asking
Right, Chad.
everybody.
Chad came up with some standard questions that were really good. So we're asking the same questions of all the references, so that's standardized. What I'd ask is, right now there are 4 of us. If Rich and Laura, I know you guys are busy, but if we're going to be calling a lot of references, if you guys could take a couple, it would be a big help.
No, Mark, I'm willing to take some. I just wasn't here last time at the time. So Do we want to do, guys, so I think we're all in agreement on that. Do we want to do the second place person only, or do we want to do second and third place?
Second and third, both,
Okay,
all three.
Dwight's shaking his head yes. Chad?
Yeah, that sounds fine to me.
Laura?
Sure.
Mark?
I think we should get all of the references for the first, let me just say this. I think we should get all of the references for the first place person, and then if that is unsatisfactory, we should move to the second and third. But that is not the process that we're moving forward with. I am fine with the process that we're moving forward with.
We haven't decided how we're moving
Well,
forward
I mean,
yet.
I'm fine with, it sounds like the rest of the board would like to get all of the references for all three of the top, which seems like a lot of potentially unnecessary work.
And then Chad, I'll get to you, let me just speak, and then I'll get to you, Mark. I agree with Laura, but I also don't think that we may not get all the references, replies from the number one, but we may not get them from number two or number three. We are coming into a very busy time of year, the holidays. But again, like Kate said, I don't want to put it off so that, we don't make a decision until February, and then we don't see anything until July or August, or, we lose their pricing or whatever. So it is kind of a difficult decision, and I'm definitely, I'll go with the will of the board and I'll help out. But it's a busy time of year for us too. Go ahead, Chad, and then Mark.
I find it a little bit concerning, though, if we are not able to, from our first choice contender, get all the references that we're seeking. Honestly, it took no more than 10 minutes to go through these 4 questions and get a suitable amount of dialogue back and forth between myself and the administrator. So I am, I'm not pulling away, my support, for our first contender at this point. But I do find it troubling that we're not able to, land a 5 to 10 minute conversation with a reference, that these folks have worked with, both the schools that we're seeking comment from, and the company. That's raising a sort of pinkish flag, for me, and I do have a concern with that I think it's important to voice. Also, though, I agree with Laura. I'm fine. I have the ability, I think, at this point in time, to be able to reach out to number 2, number 3, and take on, 2 to 4 references in total. But if we were able to focus our efforts on, our second place contender, and then compare that to number 1, and then as an if need be, like Kate said, we're not looking to drag this out. We do want to make a decision and have a new website up for both the districts and or both schools and the district. But it's so important that if it takes us until mid-January, then so be it.
Okay, go ahead, Mark.
So I agree with Chad. If we don't hear back from all 7, that's one thing, but hearing back from less than 50%, it does raise a red flag, even during the holiday season for me. So I absolutely agree that we should continue trying to get those. But if we can't, I don't want to put off getting the remainder of them. Quite honestly, I don't remember the names of the second and third. I'm not sure if we ranked a second and third because we had such a clear winner for first. But I have it all written down. I just don't remember. I also don't know how many references were provided for those 2 other companies. It's probably in the neighborhood of 4 to 6 each. So at this point, I think we make the phone calls, we get the information, we bring it to the board in whatever venue is appropriate, and we make a decision based on the information that we can get.
So before we go any further, that's what I just said a little bit ago, that I thought we only went with a clear number 1. There was 2 other ones that I think one board member liked for each one, and I don't remember ranking them. Let me ask you this: were on the 3 top finalists, did they give us a consistent number of references? Did they each give us 3 references, 6 references?
I honestly don't remember.
Okay.
I'd have to go back and look through their proposals.
How many references did you want contacted for our number 1? No, I mean, how many did you assign? Do you remember?
Oh, 7.
7?
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think if you want to be consistent, then if we're going to go to the other 2, and since I don't think there was any clear ranking, we really kind of need to do that.
We may not have 7 references for the others.
Right,
Yeah,
so,
which-
again, then how do you compare that? You know, like if they gave us 3 references and only 1 calls back, but I think it's just getting a lot more confusing.
Yeah. I would also, if I might, the terminology, you know, like we're using is we can get the references and come back and decide. I mean, I think we made a decision, and then we need to look at the references, and if the references cause us to change our decision, then we're in a different place.
That's a good point. Very good point. Did everybody hear what Laura said okay? Do we...
And maybe I'm recalling it incorrectly, but my recollection was we made a decision, we were going out for these, and if they did not come back well, for references, if they did not come back well, the words are leaving me, so I'm gonna be leaving the building soon, because once we start slurring and we're not drinking, it's time to be done. So.
I don't know, she's got a thing of water over there, it smelled a little funny, I don't know.
Laura, I think you are absolutely correct. I think the issue is that one of the 3 that we did get back from Behiveley had some concern. From our first had some concerns. Well, we had some concerns with it. And not getting the other ones from that company that could outweigh those concerns. But that's kind of where we are.
I mean, I'm fine, so I'm also fine, if people want to go and get the references for the other one and bring them here, that's fine. I don't think that we should do that. I think that we are asking, I think for a bunch of really busy people, we are asking for, we're creating a problem for ourselves.
Okay, so let's settle this, folks.
I'm gonna run to the ladies' room.
You run to the
And I'm gonna
ladies'
go
room.
with the majority.
Okay, so I think our 3 options are, we can just finish following up on the references for number 1, or we can follow up on references for number 1 and the other 2. Can that we decide that that's kind of our 2 options?
Yeah, and if it's the first of those 2 options, how many of those 7 references do we need in order to feel comfortable?
I think 3 is a happy number.
That's where we're at now.
Go ahead, Chad.
I just went back to the other 2 contenders and looked at the reference pages. There's a total of 11 references that each of them put forth, 7 by one company and 4 by the other.
Thank you, Chad.
Yes, thank you, Chad.
Yeah, so what do you, I guess you guys gotta tell me what you wanna do. We're all over the place. We spend more time on the website than we've done anything else in my career as a school board member. So, let me know what you all wanna do.
Well, I think to save time down the road, we get all the references now.
Okay. Chad, you good with that?
Yes, I am. And, you know, I will say that given the geography, I think the one company that has put forth 7 different references, their geography is very much a kinship to ours, and I think we'd be very successful in getting a very quick return on our request.
Okay. Dwight?
Yes.
Thank you, buddy. That was directed to the point. Go ahead, Kate.
Yeah.
Kate?
Yes, what is the question?
Are we good to go to the, we're gonna give the number one a return call to the ones that didn't answer, but we're also gonna check with the other two, there are 11 references in total.
Yes, I know you feel like that's an extreme level of effort. I don't feel that we're ever going to get 100% of the references to ever call back. I really believe that. I think we can do, I think, if we aim for 2 to 3 reach outs per reference, I think that's the best we can do.
You good with that, Laura?
Yes.
Okay, Mark. Go ahead, Chad, I'm sorry.
I'll be happy to take on the one company 7 included references.
Well, here's what I was gonna do, Chad. To spread the pain, I was gonna ask Mark, as the chairman of the committee, to send to everybody the questions again. I believe I still have them. I think they came from Chad during the last meeting there. And those of you that got assigned from the number one candidate, please follow up with your references again if you haven't heard back. And Mark, between you and Chad, send Laura and I a few to do, and split up whatever. Chad, you don't have to take them all on. I can do a couple, because I can call and leave a message and then call my office. So Mark, if you would just get those references back to us, and then we'll all try to get it done before the next meeting. Does that work for everybody?
Yeah, I thought I saw Laura shake her head no, though, when I...
It's fine, just send them along. Just send them along. Let's keep
Okay.
going. Let's keep going,
Yeah,
Mr. Chair.
don't give Laura many. Give her one.
Let's just keep going.
Okay, guys, I'm gonna go off script a little bit. Did everybody get a chance to review the financials?
No, I did not.
Okay. Mark, you did?
I did, but going forward, can we ask to get those more than 2.5 hours before our meetings?
Matt, will you?
Yep.
Okay, so noted.
Is there a timeline that would be good? 24
Like
hours, 2
Friday
days?
before, when the packet goes out, it'd be nice. I think it's the way they do them, Mark. I think a lot of these are like, they do them right as of today, because if we don't meet enough, something doesn't get paid, but we'll figure it out.
It's a lot to get to in a short period of time right before a meeting.
Yeah. Would somebody like to make a motion to approve the warrants in the amount of $496,405.43?
So moved.
Do I have a second to that?
Second.
Thank you, Dwight. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Appears as though it's
Can I have
unanimous.
the amount?
Four,
Can I have the amount again?
yes, 496,405.43.
Thank you.
This would be a really good liar's poker hand. Okay, so, Mark, you want to run through your 2 policies, Mark or Kate, whoever?
Yeah, I'll just do it quickly. So D4, Title I comparability policy, it was warned at the last meeting. There were no substantial changes made to the policy since the last VSBA update. We did remove the line discussing district-wide salary schedules, since we don't use schedules. And the policy committee recommends adopting. So, well, actually, I'll do both. We'll do one motion. D7, special education. It's a new policy required by statute, and there's not much to it. So I'm going to move that we adopt D4, Title I comparability policy, and D7, special education.
Have we voted to post these yet?
Yep, at the last meeting.
Okay. So they've been posted, Matt and Tammy, they've been posted in your buildings. Have there been any comments?
No comment.
Okay, Mark made a motion to adopt D4, D7, they have been posted, they've been warned, they've been out there in public. Do I have a second to Mark's motion?
Second.
Second.
Kate seconds it.
Yep.
Is there any more discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 It appears as though it's a unanimous decision. It is a unanimous decision. You don't have any executive session, do you?
Nope, all clear.
Tammy, you're all good with no executive session? Guys, I'm sorry about being late. A lot of stuff on the agenda tonight. Sorry we ran so long. Laura, tell me the next motion.
Anyway, before Laura gives that motion,
Okay.
there's one other item under old business, which I don't think we need to cover, but I just want to remind everybody of the web link to access it. It's survey.rvusd.net.
Yeah.
Community survey.
Everybody, the next step's long-term planning research. That's not going to go out yet for another few weeks, but just make sure if there's, I know a lot of people responded, and thank you, Mark, I got going a little off, but make sure you look at that and we're all good. If you have any questions or concerns, I know there a few changes were made by concerns from different board members. So thank you for reminding me, Mark.
I move we adjourn.
Motion to adjourn?
Seconded.
Thank you, Chad. Seconds it. All those in favor say adjournment.
Adjourn.
Aye.
Aye.
Good night, everyone.